Welcome to In Their Shoes by Shanakia. I'm Gaff.
And I'm Bex. We're here to help people connect through the power of shared storytelling.
In this podcast, we invite two people to tell a story about their life. Instead of reading their own story, they'll swap and they'll read each other's as if it was their own.
After both stories are finished, we will dive into the real questions to be asked, feelings that came up, and more moments that have maybe never been shared before.
Come with us as we experience walking in each other's shoes and immersing ourselves in each other's stories. This episode is brought to you by Mubi, a curated streaming service dedicated to elevating great cinema from around the globe. From iconic directors to emerging auteurs, there's always something new to discover.
With Mubi, each and every film is hand-selected so you can explore incredible movies, streaming anytime, anywhere. Now streaming in the UK and Ireland, Return to Soul, a 2022 film by Davy Shue, which is a film that connects with our theme of home. A moving search for identity in a neon-drenched soul, Davy Shue's mercurial drama aches with diasporic longing, which thrums through an exquisitely curated soundtrack. Dazzling in her vulnerability, first-time actress Park Ji-min ferociously embodies the tragicomic chaos of living between cultures.
I've heard so much great things about this film. It's on my watch list, but definitely the bio, you describing it to me, just kind of feels like a very relatable movie as an Irish person who's lived in multiple different countries and is constantly trying to navigate that kind of sense of living between where you currently live and where you're from and identity. And I think pretty much everyone has experienced that feeling at least once in their life.
Yeah, and I like to think when I move, a beautiful soundtrack moves with me. So what was the soundtrack to your life when you moved from Ireland to London?
It was actually, so the week I moved to London was the week Sinead O'Connor died. So it was just, like every single song I could find of hers on Spotify and on YouTube. And so I think I heavily associate Sinead O'Connor with my move to London. And anytime, like, it's a hot sunny day, I just open up all the windows and I blare Mandinka.
As we all should.
Absolutely. Proudly blaring Sinead O'Connor in London City.
And to stream the best of cinema, you can try Mubi free for 30 days at mubi.com/Shanakia.
That's mubi.com/SEANCHOICHE for a whole month of great cinema for free. Our guests today are Siobhan McClean and Tambu McClean. So Siobhan McClean is also known as Shiv. She's a DJ turned singer-songwriter born to Irish and Zimbabwean parents who moved to Dublin at the age of 5. And her ethereal sound is influenced by the music that moulded her childhood and by her family. From singing harmonies with her mum to riffing 90s R&B with her sister, she's always gravitated towards music as an expression of herself. And we're so lucky to have one of those people I just mentioned in the podcast with Shiv today, and that is, of course, Shiv's mum, Tambu. So very welcome to Tambu. Yeah, sing for us right now.
Oh my God.
Don't worry, don't
I'm not supposed to sing, am I?
You got if you want.
Well, this is a talking thing.
Okay, we'll let you off the hook for now, but we'd love to hear it, maybe off the podcast.
Yeah. A little
Private session.
behind the scenes concert afterwards. So Tambu was originally born in Zimbabwe to a family of 13, which is also like my own mother. She was born to a family of 13 as well, so we can discuss that. She grew up to pursue a career as a theatre nurse, and in the hospital she met her future husband, a doctor, and they began to build their family together, eventually moving to Dublin. Now retired, Tambu puts her energy fiercely into her life passions. She has a lot of love for farming, especially her chickens and her homegrown veg. She has plans to go work and live in a homestead.
Yeah.
Oh yeah? Those chickens.
What are their names? May I ask?
No, you eat them.
Mama. And you know what? Mama's vegetarian, but she's still got the traditional Zimbabwean beliefs about her.
No, you don't name your animals if you're going to eat them.
Oh, is it bad luck?
No, it's just very sad.
It's
Yeah. Well, I mean, if I don't eat meat generally, I try to avoid meat.
Just your chickens.
Just
the chickens that you
raise.
I don't.
That's fair.
Okay, let's just leave it there. But if I'm quite happy to pass it on to you
Yeah.
I get you.
to eat.
Well, I'm a vegetarian too.
No,
so,
no,
you know,
just
pass
as-
it on to
Pass it
him.
on to me.
Just as you,
Yes,
a person,
yes,
to the
yes.
next person to eat, I'm quite happy. I like the whole feel of having chickens clucking around, scratching, chasing bugs, and laying eggs. I really, really like eggs. So then I have the chickens for the eggs and the scratching and the clucking. and then after that, well,
Adios.
somebody else
Yeah.
can eat it. And so if I name it, I get attached to it.
Yeah.
And then I
true.
can't really be passing Janet to
Yeah.
somebody else to
Yeah.
eat.
No,
Janet.
not Janet. I can see it, and I'm already sad. Poor Janet.
So I don't
Janet.
name my chickens.
But of course, you know, what Shiv has been telling us is that you plan to go and work and live on a homestead. And you've reached out to a specific homestead from following their YouTube. Am I right in saying that?
Yes, I was following these guys. I was following these guys on YouTube, and I'm very critical about them, sadly, but I want to go and join them.
And show them who's boss.
She's like, why aren't they growing their own vegetables? They have a whole farm. Why aren't they growing their own
Okay, you're gonna go in and whip him into shape. I feel that.
The guy and his lady bought a farm in Portugal, abandoned land. No one is farming it, and they want to start this whole new age. Let's live together and let's conserve nature and look after our world, because if we don't, nobody else is going to. And where will we be, or where will our children's children be? So they were like posting all these things, and I'm like, they're wasting time. Because if it was me, as soon as I got there, I would have built a chicken house.
That's true.
For Jana and
For
her
Janet.
friends. Yeah.
Well, Tambu, you're gonna go in. You're gonna do it all.
Yeah.
And show them how it should be done, and make.
I don't know if
they
will take me.
No, they
Well,
won't
they would
now.
be food
Once they
not
hear this
to.
podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Once
This
they
will-
listen to this podcast.
This
they
will be your ticket in.
Yeah.
Oh, was that the trick? Thank you. Thank you, Ben.
It's funny how you bring up that point about, you know, trying to make the planet that we live on a better place as well, because it is our collective home, and home is the theme for our stories today. Shall we get into it? How are we feeling? Are we ready to go?
Yeah. My mother used to tell us that your home is where your umbilical cord is buried. This was done in her tribe to root the children in the soil and the traditions of those who came before them, and to allow people to move about with a strong tether to their origins, so the journey forward would be easier. I found this to be very comforting, as it acted like a compass and a rooting statement to follow throughout my life. To have this statement rattling around in my head was comforting. It carried me along and kept me feeling safe. I lived in a high-density area of Harare called Highfield. We lived in a 4-roomed house, cramped for a family of 12 siblings and countless aunts, uncles and cousins who came and went as they needed. We squabbled, played, fought, and did our homework on the floor, but always shared everything with everybody there at the time. It was never easy to explain our connections to all those relatives, but we were loved, cared for, and cosseted by all the adults around us. Our home was the warmest place to be, as our mother was good to us, good to the neighbours, and good to the extended family. There was always a sharing of food, clothes, tears and fun, sometimes with complete strangers to us, but known to my mum in some way. In high school, I attended boarding school. It was a sad time for me, leaving home and family, but I felt special as I looked forward to going back where friends and support were always available and freely given by the multitude of siblings and relatives. At school, I surrounded myself with friends in an effort to approximate the feeling of belonging I missed so much. I learned to live with the sadness, but cherished the moments with my whole family whenever I travelled back to Highfield. During nursing training, I went back as often as I could, as home was only 10 minutes away. It was not the same anymore, as I felt disconnected and distant to all the people there. My older siblings were gone from the house, and I missed them, and I didn't get on so well with my younger siblings, as we didn't know each other. The newer members of the extended family were complete strangers, and I did not know how to fit in to the dynamic that had developed in my absence. With each trip back, my mother looked more tired, and it was difficult to watch the effects of aging on her. It was sad that I hadn't been there for my mum as she grew older, and I was disheartened at the gap of how I expected to feel versus how I felt. By the time I was working 200 kilometers away, I decided I had to make my own home and also, in a sense, redefine it from the house that I was born, or the house that I was raised in, to the country I was born in. I travelled a good bit around the country and the region, but still, when I returned to the country, I always had the compulsion to go to our little house in the high-density area and recharge my emotional batteries. This had always been my way. I got married and moved to Cape Town, South Africa. This is a place I never felt attached to. I surrounded myself with friends and companions, worked, and then eventually resigned from my work without ever feeling I belonged. I decided to return to Zimbabwe, as felt that living in a foreign country was not good for me. I wasn't relaxed and could not get that familiar feeling. Back at the family house, I felt like an interloper. I didn't feel any warmth and any comfort. It no longer felt like home. I couldn't understand it. My umbilical cord was buried in the garden, so how come it didn't feel the same as before? I had been longing for this return. I had been looking forward to reconnecting with my past life and past emotions. It was not happening, and I was broken-hearted. I then moved as far from my disappointment as I could without leaving Zimbabwe. We went to live in Mutare, 300 kilometers from Harare. I was home without the feeling of home. Very sad. A few years later, I felt good. I settled. I had friends, my siblings came and went, I had my children, my husband and my gardens, and it was the best time of my adulthood. I felt anchored, supported and comfortable. I realised I had found and made my own home. I didn't need to be in Harare as much anymore to feel like I was connected. This was brilliant. This was what I was looking for. But no sooner had I found this feeling, the political situation in Zimbabwe started changing, so we moved. We moved to Ireland, Athy, County Kildare, to my husband's birthplace, although he never felt like Ireland was his home. I had never been anywhere outside of Africa, and everything was strange. English was the spoken language, but the meaning was sometimes different. I had to learn a new way of communicating. We lived in the small village of Athy in County Kildare. It was a rural place where for a long time we were the only black family. It didn't take me long to fit in and find my niche. The slow rural way of life suited me. People were friendly and eager to help in any way. I felt like we were celebrities. Having the children in school made the friend pool available and easily accessible. Church was a place of support, and my sister joined us shortly after our arrival, strengthening my grounding. By now, I was adept at changing my home base and could rustle up a homey feeling wherever I was. I had my children, my husband, and an unbroken tether to my homeland, my umbilical cord buried in my family garden. I went back often to recharge and reconnect, but realised I didn't need to be at that particular house to feel warm and comforted and rooted to a place. Through talking to friends, siblings, and my mother, I realised I didn't need to be in that house to feel at home. What I needed was a strong bond to the people who made me feel centred. What was important was to be with people who evoked the feelings of home inside me. Not a particular house or place or country. By being and accepting who I was, by doing what I felt was right regardless, and as long as I was happy with who I was, home was always within me. I've since lived in 2 other countries and visited at least one country in every continent on Earth except Antarctica. I heard, this is my favourite part, I heard you turn into a fish finger.
So cold.
The moment you land there. And Aish, I don't want to be a fish finger or an icicle. Or perhaps you turn into a penguin. Ha ha ha. Thank you.
Wow.
Excellent.
Beautiful story. Is that how fish fingers are made?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, you just travel to Antarctica and just become one.
Yeah.
It's fish. It's frozen. Fish fingers.
Good logic. Good logic.
That is the explanation.
That's
I think,
mom
that we all
maths.
need. Yeah, it's a beautiful piece, and I think, I mean, we'll ask lots of questions at the end, but there's some questions that I just have in my mind already for both of you. So first of all, Shiv, reading that, did you feel like you could relate to a lot of it? How did you?
How did you feel just reading your mum's story like that? Because I'm sure you know it, but like, you know.
Yeah. It was interesting, I guess, to hear her perspective properly, because obviously I lived it with her. Well, the part I was alive for, I lived with her. But it was just interesting to fully understand kind of where her roots are tethered. Also, I'd never actually heard the umbilical cord thing, and I didn't know if it was real or not.
Yeah, same actually, and I want to ask that as an ignorant Irish man who's never heard this.
Well, I didn't even know, and I'm half Zimbabwean, so.
But is it actually? So is it a legend, or is it a figure of speech that the umbilical cord is?
No,
buried?
it's practically.
It is practically buried
garden.
in the garden. So that's a tradition that people from
My mum.
Right.
My mum's tribe.
Would do when a child is born. Okay, that's that. And is that still done?
No.
Okay.
Don't think so.
No.
I didn't do
I
it
guess
for
maybe
free.
my umbilical cord's floating around in the ether
No,
somewhere.
actually, I buried it in the garden in Matari.
Did you actually?
There you go. You didn't
can
know
go
that.
But not in Fen Valley.
Oh.
Yeah, because we moved to Fen Valley when you were 6 months.
Oh.
I buried it
so
in
it's just...
Cornwall Road,
Okay.
number 1 Cornwall
Whoa,
Road.
that's kind of weirdly
That's quite
comforting.
cool.
Yeah, I don't know why. I actually quite like. I don't know. I feel now attached physically to that place now.
Yeah, no,
in a
well,
weird
my
way.
mum, this is what my mum did with our umbilical cords. And she always used to tell us, you have to be attached to something. And to feel attached, you have to have something of yours in that place.
I mean, it's kind of like the mirror image of the way a lot of cultures will spread their ashes somewhere when they die. Like, if anything, it kind of bookends life quite beautifully.
Yeah.
And would that have been a tradition in your tribe as well, that when someone perishes, that their ashes get spread?
No, you don't get burnt.
Right. Okay.
No.
Big. No. No cremation. Okay, that's
But
good.
when
No
people are,
cremation.
but when people are buried, correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm misremembering this, or if you visit someone's grave, you like bring them things that they can use in the afterlife. So I remember visiting Gogo's grave, Mama's mum, and we brought like cups and plates and something I can't remember, but that sticks out of my mind
basket.
and placed and
Well,
just
we'll call
placed
it
it
a
on top.
basket.
And I was just, I was like, what is this? And she was like, yeah, no, it's for the afterlife. It's like a symbol of them passing, but them their souls kind of still
Needing
living
this.
on and still needing something to use, I guess. Yeah.
And I wanted to know, Shiv, as someone, obviously who has grown up with both Zimbabwean and Irish traditions in your life, is there anything that you hold on to as a hybrid of, let's say, your parents' upbringing for you, that, when you're traveling or when you're away or when you're in between countries and homes, that you hold on to and clutch on to?
I'm trying to think. I don't know if there's any specific traditions that I hold on to, because I guess weirdly it's like having the mix of both of them has kind of made me like detach from both of them in a way, which is a little bit sad.
Yeah.
And just, I guess, like make my own way of traditions, which I'm still, I guess, trying to figure out. But I think maybe the thing that feels like a common thread between Irish and Zimbabwean culture is the sense of, it's like Ireland is Western, but it's in culture now, modern day Ireland. But in my mind, it's still a relatively like collectivist society. Like that's more kind of an Eastern tradition of being collectivist, and Zimbabwe and African as well. It's about the collective rather than the individual. That's above everything else. And I think that's something. It's not a tradition, but it's something that I feel from both sides.
And it's kind of ingrained into your mindset.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I definitely think that that's the case. And I think, in times of adversity, Irish people have been known to kind of display very, very tangible solidarity.
Yeah.
And I hope that that's something that you experience. And I wonder, did you experience that, Tambu, when you moved to Ireland? Did you find that Ireland was an equally collectivist society? Yeah,
everybody was out for everybody, and people looked out for other people. People looked out for you, made sure you were okay. I didn't see you walking yesterday. What happened?
I think that's
Nosy
called
bastards,
gossip.
yeah.
But in gossiping,
Yeah.
you discover how somebody's life is moving on or not.
Yeah.
Yes,
Absolutely.
and it is. I don't know why people don't like gossip. I love gossiping. It's the only way. No, okay. I could come to you and I could just sit and stare at you. It's fine. But then I hear about you from some other person. And I just listen and say, oh, really?
What have you heard, Tambu?
What is Shiv
It's not
been telling
true.
you?
So there's, it's also a way of exchanging information, a way of keeping in touch with each other, and a way of making sure that everybody is as well and as safe as they can be. Because even if I could have broken my leg in the house, and if they don't ask, have you seen this woman walking?
That's true.
Then nobody would ever come to my door and say,
course.
are you all right? You know.
And that exists in very individualistic cultures where people do get very easily forgotten about and neglected. And
Keep to yourself. London, sure.
Yeah.
Not being
Yeah,
funny,
no,
but
I've heard
living
of-
in an apartment, I never met my neighbours. I lived here for a year. I never talked to my one set of neighbours in the lift once, you know?
How did it feel hearing your daughter read that out?
She doesn't know how to read.
Sorry, the shade. Excuse you, the amount of scratching and had to go back and forth.
Janet wrote
That's-
it.
Yeah, Janet wrote it.
chicken scratch. Oh, that's really funny.
No. I know it was fine. I was very proud of her and I was very proud of my story.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I didn't feel sad or I don't get any emotions.
Yeah.
Yeah. The emotions came out when I wrote.
Yeah.
It's last night when I was reading it myself and thinking, oh my goodness. And she was saying, what are you sighing for all the time?
my life is on this page.
So I have got over that. And
Yeah.
now hearing her read it, it's like, okay, yeah, no, that's fine. No, she's not. I'm more critiquing her reading than anything.
That's what mums are for.
Yep. Don't I know it?
I think a lot of people will relate to that are listening as well.
Well, on that note, I think that gives us our cue to have you read Shiv's story whenever you're ready, Tambu.
The air hostess taps me awake, and I force my eyes open to see her face smiling at me in her air hostessy way. She notifies me of our imminent landing into Dublin, and I feel my blank, sleepy stare resting on her ever cheaper face. I sit up to rub the sleep out of my eyes and slowly move my stiff body into an upright position. A cursory glance out the window allows me to finally access the words I heard as I see Dublin's coastline materialize, bathed in the sleepy colours of the morning's first light. 2 months away, and a 15-hour journey later, and I'm coming home for Christmas after what's been a whirlwind 2023. As the ground rushes towards us, I brace myself for the inevitable cold that will pummel me upon stepping outside. Uganda and Dublin offer something very different to each other in terms of climate. And it was time for me to swap sweating for shivering, to burst the bubble I had been encased in during my stay with my parents in Kampala, Uganda's capital city, spent working on my album. And while I had enjoyed the idyllic and peaceful environment I was in and the creativity it afforded, it was time to return home to Ireland. Having been born in Mutare, Zimbabwe, and later moving to Athy in Kildare when I was 5, and being in boarding school in Kilkenny, my heart had been tied to a few different places. It was Dublin, however, where I found my first sense of what home meant to me as an individual. Upon finishing secondary school, I arrived in Dublin at the ripe age of 18 to study psychology in UCD. I was starting to figure out who I was when I wasn't attached to anyone, and Dublin fostered that development. I was with friends all the time, and it felt reminiscent of my boarding school days. I loved working, and I was beginning to love Dublin itself as I got familiar with its charm, and as my acquaintance with the city grew, it appeared to shrink in size. It fit me like a glove. It was filled with enough mystery and potential to feel exciting, but was small enough for me to have that sense of familiarity that breeds a feeling of security. As I felt my roots to the city deepen, so too did I feel myself grow and expand, secured by the comfort of friendships that seemed to promise eternity, and the confidence of being in a city I knew better than my own hometown. This comfort fostered a sense of infallibility that allowed me to begin to dip my toe in the world of music, starting out as a DJ and eventually writing and recording and releasing music independently, beginning to establish myself and little by little watch a career taking shape. At a certain point, a bird has to fly the nest. Home is comforting, but also inhibiting. After drinking my way through college, I entered the adult world.
She inverts her commas.
No, and she always does this, guys, with one finger. I find it so funny.
Is that not out of a film? Which one? Which film is this?
I don't know.
The Shining?
Is it?
Yeah, that's it. Yes, it's a bit more sinister.
Somehow.
I entered the adult world and my patience with Dublin began wearing thin. By November 2018, I had moved 4 times that year, struggling to find somewhere that was both affordable and not a hellhole. Nights out were becoming a necessary evil rather than a fun and exciting way to socialize, a form of escapism from the slow deterioration of the cultural landscape in Dublin. It was less a case of wanting to be drinking and more a case of what else would I be at. My feet began to have a serious case of the itches and I set my sights on Paris, a city of romance, beauty, culture, and best of all, a city that wasn't Dublin. Somewhere new to sink my teeth into. It was my first time moving to a new country on my own, and having just started to find my feet as an independent musician, I was looking for a new environment to inspire me creatively. Dublin would always be there waiting to cradle me in her sweet homely comforts. August 2019 saw me spend 3 months in Paris and I fell in love in many senses of the word. Meeting my boyfriend at the time there, our courtship was backdropped by the city of love. It stirred within me a sense of magic and wonder. A city so aesthetic that walking around there felt like being in a movie. The city burrowed its way into my heart and became somewhere I felt was my place. After spending COVID in Ireland, I returned to Paris where I lived with my boyfriend for almost 2 years. I could have stayed in Paris for longer. I would have, but circumstances dictated that my boyfriend and I make the jump over to London, hoping to continue to build my musical foundations in one of the world's most influential cities. At that point, music had evolved from a dreamer's side hustle to my full-time career, meaning that I worked at home in my makeshift studio most of the time. Because of this, I had a deep urge to make the space feel true to me. I made our little London flat a sanctuary, a safe place to land. Having just signed a record deal with an Irish label, I was back and forth to Ireland very regularly for work, and the constant traveling was beginning to wear on me. I had lived away from home for the guts of 3 years, and Ireland was calling. Due to the outrageous rent prices in Dublin, my boyfriend and I set our sights on purchasing an apartment together, which made more financial sense, and mortgage repayments worked out as a significantly cheaper monthly expense than renting somewhere would be. May 2023 marked the time when I moved back to Dublin, drunk on the naivety of hope and excitement. However, reality set in swiftly. My mom became sick, tensions rose with my label and music management, and my relationship ended. Aww.
Don't. You're going to make me cry. Yeah.
I was left scrambling to put the pieces of my life back together. I had to make new accommodation arrangements, which thankfully fell into place quite smoothly as one of my closest friends had a room open up in her apartment in the Liberties. I was expecting the comforting embrace of the city that I used to feel centered in, but somehow things felt off. The idea of living with friends was something I had romanticized, but after having been in my own place for over a year, it felt like a step backwards. Many of the places that used to be my regulars had closed down or been replaced, and within my friend group, only a measly 2 out of the 6 of us remained in Dublin due to the unfavorable rent prices and lack of cultural accommodations for young people. There were many people doing their part to revive the city, but it was an uphill battle. There was something else that didn't feel quite right about Dublin, though. There was a niggling sense of something dense that had shifted into the culture of Ireland, but I couldn't place it. The city looked as diverse as I had ever seen it, but things felt weird. I had little time to truly digest these feelings before I went through another upheaval, separating from my management and label simultaneously, and in early October 2023, I took it upon myself to go and join my parents who lived in Uganda. Spending 2 months there writing music, I found another slice of home in that moment of time, an isolated Bible where I was blissfully unaware of anything outside of my immediate environment. Fast forward 2 months, and here I am, glassy-eyed on a plane, having just been woken by the smiling air hostess. Landing in Dublin, I stepped out of the plane and breathed in the wintry air. The smoky smell of the cozy fires being lit all around me fills my nostrils, and I breathe a sigh of relief. Happy to be back where I feel I most belong. Have mostly forgotten about my feelings of being off-kilter before I left. I'm straight to work mode, and I check myself into a hotel on Camden Street for a Christmas show in the National Concert Hall. I arrive with a spring in my step, eyes up, ready to bask in the familiarity of the city I know and love. However, something in the way people move feels different. It's nearing Christmas, and the usual
Raucousness.
thank you, feels tame. Raucousness feels tame and constricted, tight. There's a distance between me and the people around me that puts me off balance. As I chat to the people I'm working with, I hear about the intensity of the riots in Dublin, spurred by the awful incident of an immigrant who stabbed a number of school children in broad daylight. My mind flashes back to my time in Dublin in the summer, where people's distance was palpable, the coldness in people's stares that hadn't existed before, the conversations with taxi drivers and their disdain for the incoming migrants, the rise in overt racist comments on social media. Were those cold stares universal, or were they reserved for the citizens of Ireland who didn't look traditionally Irish? Was this part of a larger omnipresent coldness, or was this a shift in the way the people of Ireland saw me now? There was to be a growing sense of separation in Ireland, a sense of us and them, which feels heavier than it ever has before, an understandable but obstructive sense of protectiveness for the traditions of the country. For the first time ever, I feel like my connection to Dublin is hanging on by a thread. I had left, but I always felt I would have a place here. Now I'm back in Athy, living in our family home with my sister, her husband, and children, pondering my definition of home. Home is a pocket of time and space. It's a recipe concocted from the connection to the people and place you are in, the comforting and warm embrace of familiarity, of routine, of tradition. It's the things that speak to the deepest corners of your soul materialized. It's the lack of performatives, the freedom to show up as you are and know you will be welcomed with open arms. It's love and joy and finding wonder in the little things. Up until now, I'd always found myself truly centered back in Ireland, Dublin specifically. My accent would make its way firmly back to my tongue, having been dulled whenever it was out of its usual context. I could speak the colloquialisms with ease, understanding the subtleties of the art of Irishness. I knew where to go to get that specific type of oven pizza I liked. I didn't need Google Maps to get around. Almost every corner of the city held the whispers of memories I had made with people I loved. Now, however, I find myself wondering where exactly I fit in this puzzle piece. Where is home truly, if not Ireland, if not Dublin? The friendships and love that used to be my gravitational pullback to the city are dwindling. Sky-high rents make independence feel out of reach entirely. Cultural spaces are lacking. The infrastructure of the music industry is inadequate. And now, being of mixed race, I wonder how much entitlement I even have to call this place home, in the eyes of those who aren't prepared to welcome me here anymore. I wonder how many people look at me now as a problem to be eradicated, a stain on the culture and traditions of Ireland. How many people view me as an imposter, as someone who is a token Irish person only to be truly accepted once I achieve not amounts of success. I know these people stand in the minority, that most people in Ireland don't share these views, but the shift in the social climate has been something tangible, not something I can prove, rather an intuitive sense of distance from the people I used to view as my own. I would have loved to have been able to tie this string of thoughts into a beautiful and cohesive bow, but in this case, that's not realistic. That's not life. Life is a series of finding home, losing home, and the journey to finding it again. So for right now, I'm in between homes. Little pieces of home are scattered around the world. In my childhood memories of Zimbabwe, in the dorms in Kilkenny, in the beauty of Paris, in the safety of my flat in London, in the warm embrace of my parents' love in Uganda, in the smiles of my niece and nephew, the 20-minute voice notes I sent to my friends. Really, though, I'm homesick for Ireland, for the Dublin I used to know. For now, all I can do is embrace the uncertainty and look forward to discovering where the next chapter leads. Grateful for the diverse fragments of home scattered across the world, each contributing to the beautiful mosaic of my life. Dublin and I might be having a rough patch right now, but there will always be a piece of me left in the city, and a piece of the city deeply and securely lodged in me. Thank you.
Wow.
Thanks.
Thank you. The emotions were high.
Yeah. Hearing her reading that part about like when I came back to Ireland got me, just because it was a really, really intense time of my life. Like it was difficult, especially obviously you being sick was like not fun to come back to. But yeah, it just got me. Basically, I lost my train of thought because I got thinking about that again.
Yeah.
But yeah,
and that's...
it was
No, I think there's always, you know, no matter if you're at home or away from home, having that where, you know, a parent, and I mean, you mentioned it in your story about your mum sort of getting older and seeing that dynamic change, especially when we say like home is connected to people, that then starts to, you know, shake that a little bit, which is scary too. And I think that's like, as you said, like you both said it in your stories, like people and the connections we make are really that anchor. And that's the scariest thing in all this, when that's sort of in jeopardy, because you love them so much as well, and it's hard to see someone you love go through something like that. And obviously at the time, you know, you were going through a lot anyway. You'd just gone
It's
through
like
a breakup.
everything at once.
It's
crazy time with music, moving house, not actually buying an apartment that I thought I was buying, like literally paid a deposit for. So it was just like a lot all at once. Yeah.
How did that, because you had a moment there when you read it, just sort of reflecting on that, how did you feel, you know, just reading that out loud and knowing what your daughter was going through?
Well, as a mother, I kind of want to hold and hug my child and protect her from everything. But I'm also aware that she has to make her own way in life. And in fact, that was my whole thing, was raise them so they can live by themselves and I don't have to do anything for them ever.
Except be here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you still will do though.
So, yeah, well, being here is...
Okay.
She must just stand up on her own 2 feet.
Okay.
Yeah, no. We'll just move on from that. But yes, that's waiting for your children to come home so you can cosset them and love them is, I think, a part of the definition of being a mother. Yeah. And expecting your mom to come to your side and hold your hand every time you have an issue is also part of being a child. And it's an expectation of motherhood or parenthood. Maybe you want your father.
Tambu, you obviously, you know, you would have read this. It's your daughter's words, and Shiv is talking about a very relevant and rather poignant experience of her relationship with Dublin, going through a bit of a quandary, for want of a better word. And I mean, I understand why you are experiencing that. I mean, what we saw in a couple of weeks ago at the end of November in Dublin was despicable, and the narrative that is existing on that side is completely deplorable. And I just wanted to get a sense of, you know, how do you feel in terms of your relationship with Ireland, how it was when living there versus now in light of everything that's happened? You know, obviously there's a lot of relatability between your stories with one another, you know, and then also a lot of difference and disparity. What has been your own experience upon returning to Ireland within the past couple of days? Do you get that sense of a shift in the way people are behaving, the ambience, the general sense of collectiveness that we spoke about earlier? Is that going through a rift for you?
Not in a Thai, no.
No.
But it's a very small town and everybody knows everybody.
I agree with that, by the way. The Thai doesn't feel... The Thai
Anyway
doesn't feel...
affected.
Not the way... It didn't... The energy wasn't the same as what I was feeling in Dublin. Anyway, yeah.
It just felt like the same laid back place I arrived to. And I just see the same people. Oh, you're back! So I still feel like a celebrity. So
Good, and let that be unscathed. You are a celebrity.
there are people who remember me and remind me of that time when you arrived and you had your 2 little girls and you were walking down the road. So it's,
The same.
yeah.
And what would you say to someone like Shiv right now who's experiencing, I don't want to speak out of turn, but maybe a little bit of fallout psychologically with a place like Dublin and Ireland?
I don't know how she would deal with it because we're different.
Of course.
Yeah, I'm a black woman in Ireland. She's a half Irish woman in Ireland. She has a right to claim her Irishness because she is Irish.
I would counter, though, in Ireland, even though you are fully black and I'm half white, half black, a lot of people in Ireland, like my friend Lauren, who's one of my best friends, still didn't know that Papa was white for like 10 years of our friendship. So I would argue that people still view me as a black person, not as a half white, half black person. So I think, and that in some ways makes it a little bit more challenging. I have a parent who is Irish. I've lived here for 20 odd years, and there's still people I feel are looking at me sideways and kind of not sure, unsure of me, or, maybe perceiving me as someone that doesn't necessarily hold the rights to Irishness.
Well, shout Phil Lynette and Samantha Mumba.
Yeah.
No, okay, well, for me, I don't know how she would deal with it, but for me, I would feel like all these other things, the negative feelings, the racist people, the bad treatment because you're not quite Irish enough, has got absolutely nothing to do with me. It's got nothing to do with how I live my life, how I see myself, and how I connect myself to the world around me. It's all of it, it's got to do with that person.
Agreed.
And there is no way in the world that I can change her perception of me. She's the only one who can change her own perception of me. And I can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
And the only thing I can do is accept myself as I am and be kind to the person next to me, regardless of whether they're being racist to me or not, or be bullying me or not. And smother them with love and kindness. Maybe one day they'll turn around and be a different person because of how you responded to them.
How frustrating / exhausting / unfair is it that, like, I'm here existing as a person who identifies as Irish, and there are now people around me that I have to overcompensate for to feel a sense of acceptance, and probably they won't accept me, and that's fine. Now it's my responsibility to be overly presentable to now engage with them and maybe hopefully change their view of all black people in the future. That's like a heavy load to bear. But I do agree with what you're saying to an extent.
No, you don't have to change anyone.
Yeah,
you can't
okay, fine.
change anyone.
No, okay,
and
fine.
No amount of overcompensating is going to change anybody. The only way to live your life is to be yourself and be happy with who you are. Be happy with what you are. Because what he's feeling it's got nothing to do with you.
Yeah, no, I know. Yeah.
I guess it's just unfair.
Yeah,
and I think that's the big thing.
Yeah.
And I think when you've already been through so much in terms of, moving around, taking risks, trying to, establish yourself in life and going through, when you take those risks, generally it doesn't work sometimes, or you've had that experience and you need to move on. So now when you want to feel that anchor to home again, or something that feels comforting because you're in a moment of turmoil, you're not getting that because of people like this.
Yeah.
And that's where I do feel there's a justification to feel upset and angry about it.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't, to your mum's point, it's not on you to change those people, and it shouldn't take over you.
From my point of view, I don't know how else to help you because I lived my whole life with racism.
Mama was in South Africa during apartheid. Like,
Wow.
she
I
was
was
like in it.
also
Like,
in Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
During the Rhodesian era, it was black people over there, white people over there. This is the place for black people, and you can't go in this place because it's for white people. You can't eat white bread. I'm not saying we weren't allowed. I'm just giving an example.
Yeah.
It's just what came into my head. You can't eat white bread because you're black. So I grew up with this, and I was born into it. And it was just a way of life. You accepted it and you moved on because you can't change anything around you. Things did change in terms of government and laws and rules and regulations and all that, and where the general population could access anything. But as a white person, you could stop a person from coming into your shop by saying they're undesirable, they're wearing the wrong clothes, they're not wearing a tie.
Gosh.
That's how you would call it. So my survival instinct says, if you're telling me that I can't come into your place because I don't have a tie, then it isn't a place that I need to be in. And I move on to find a place that accepts me as I am.
I think Shiv said you're exhausted, right? Was another point in it. Like, it's hard continuously having to have that mentality. It's very strong of you to have that.
Yeah, because everywhere you go, there will always be something. There will always be someone who doesn't like something about you. Not necessarily your skin color. Also, you don't have to like every single person you meet in the world.
No, I know.
Yeah.
Have you found that this has become more interwoven into your lyrics, this theme, this struggle?
You
in
know what?
The past time?
So I had done a lot of writing about it like a couple of years ago, post George Floyd, because that was maybe the first time that I fully was like confronted. I remember I had always been kind of like, racism doesn't exist. Was mainly in white spaces, like, yeah. And I was like, it's not a thing, blah, blah, blah. And George Floyd happened, everything, there were so many conversations happening. And then I remember something just struck me. One of the girls that I was living with at the time was like, I was like, no, it's fine, like whatever. And then she was like, if you think about it, being black, you're always going to be like disliked or othered wherever you go. You know what I mean? Like, it's everywhere, really. Well, bar Africa, I suppose, because everyone's black there.
No, actually, even being in Africa, white people still treat black
true.
people as other
That's
in
true.
their own
country.
homeland.
Yeah,
which
that's
is
true.
insane. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
So,
Yeah, that's true.
So it's not like, even if you go to Africa, well, for you, yes, if you go to
Yeah,
Africa,
because,
people will be, woo.
There they think, yeah. There I'm a white person in Africa. Yeah. But
Fake white person.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, so that really, like, when she said that like I felt like everything, my whole world collapsed or something, and I had a lot of writing and a lot of processing at that point. Post that, while I was in Uganda, honestly, I was just doing a lot of processing about like life and like what had happened in the past like couple of months. And then, but it was when I came back and when I was starting to feel all the shift that I've perceived, real or imagined. I now feel like, whoa, okay, I feel like I have a lot to say. Not specifically about race, because I don't know if I really want to be that girl. You know what I mean? I don't want to be
no one should be expecting you to do that. It's not your job to do that.
Yeah, exactly. But I do feel like there's things that I want to say in that vein. Yeah. Because even like falling out of step with Dublin, it's not exclusively the due to the fallout of the riots. That's part of the story, but it's also like, you know, ridiculous rent prices, everyone having to leave because of that, lack of cultural landscape, very few creative spaces for artists.
Yeah, it was funny
all
you
of that
said,
stuff
yeah,
as well.
When we went to the event in Dublin for Sean Kia.
The one we did in Emma.
Yeah,
In
at
the
Emma.
Irish Museum of Modern Arts, we did a night. Yeah.
I remember you saying, and a couple of people there saying that, oh, Belfast is amazing. And like, to me, that's shocking because that's never been something I've heard. It's always Dublin, Dublin. And you know, a lot of people mentioned this to me, which I wasn't fully aware of the extent of it, is that it's really diminished in that sense and that vibrancy, and that actually Belfast has started to take over on that in a way that's is sort of more inspiring or sort of pulling people into it. So it's funny that you have that as well. Like, it seems to be like a mass thing there, which is a very hard thing then to deal with, because if everyone's moving away from it, what does that leave?
What's there, you know? Because even if there was like a couple of like, okay, fine, my friends aren't here, but there's so much to do, or I can afford to live here comfortably as an independent person, or you know, like, there's just so many things stacked against it right now that make it feel like a city that's unwelcoming, you know, for the people that actually love it. Like, I love it.
Same.
I just would love it to love me back. You know what I mean? It's that boyfriend that you see like the potential in.
Yeah,
But you know what I
exactly.
mean?
I always say,
You
don't
see
fall
the
in love with
potential.
anyone's potential.
Oh, wow.
No, don't
Stay
say
away
that. All of Dublin's going to leave
Yeah,
now.
stay away from Dublin, basically.
No, but like, what does it feel like to lose your sense of home? For you, personally. And for you, because you've both experienced it. Devastating.
Yeah, I was very disabled and detached emotionally. I didn't know what to do with myself. I didn't know how to relate to my family anymore. I didn't know how to relate to the people around me. And when I went back to my place of work, I didn't know how to behave with those people. It would take me a while. I would feel like I was out of sync with everybody else. And it would take me a while to kind of come back to my life there where I was living and working when I came from home, having just got there, and it's all sad, and I don't feel like I belong, and I can't find my place anywhere, but I want to be there. And the driving thing was I wanted to be there. I felt that is where I had to be, but it wasn't giving me what I felt I needed from it.
Why did you feel you had to be there?
Sorry?
Why did you feel you had to be there?
If I was an egg, it's where I was boiled
Yeah.
cooked to
You
be
love your eggs. You love your
So you
eggs.
could be hard-boiled or soft-boiled.
hard-boiled egg.
So, I love that you said that, and also just like having that pull towards your family and feeling that that's where you belong. You obviously moved away from your family, and you talk about that with your mum and coming back to her, but then also having your daughter now live in different countries and then come visit you again in Uganda. How does that feel? Like, do you relate to like how your mum felt when you must have left, and now do you understand that, or are you happy for her to leave and, as you say, go experience her own things? But then
I'm happy for her to go and experience her own things, but I want to know what's going on in her life all the time. I want to know what's going on in their lives all the time.
Find My Friends is turned on.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not on her TikTok page all day, but I do phone regularly and I ask what's going on. Why haven't you talked to me? What's wrong? Yeah.
How's that for you, Shiv?
I mean,
It's intense.
because I do turn into a bit of a hermit whenever I'm like in whatever my home space is. Usually I'm writing or like doing whatever, and I've been in a bubble. So I don't think she likes that much, that I'm not as accessible as she'd like me to be.
Yes, I start off by sending WhatsApp messages, like just typed messages, then voice notes, and then I phone.
you toured together now in Dublin. What's the next step? When are you going back to Uganda? What's your plans for 2024?
She's in Dublin.
Yeah,
I'm not. I'm not even.
Oh, she's moving
I'm
to
in
the
a
Thai as
Thai,
well.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
She's in a
Thai.
Thai.
Yeah.
And Dublin is just a place we pass through.
At the moment.
At the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going back at the end of the first week of January. I go back to Uganda. Well, we go back because my husband is going back to his job there. And that's it. I'll be coming back maybe to visit the grandchildren.
And is Uganda feeling like a home?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love warm places. And it's much easier to
Have chickens.
have chickens. It's much easier to feel at home, and it's quicker because I have a connection to Africa.
Of course.
Yeah. So I find it great. Yeah. And any warm place, I would feel at home.
If you were able to confidently feel like you've found your sense of home again in Dublin, what would there need to be there for that to exist?
I think, to be honest, for me right now, I think it would have to be kind of a lot of what I feel is lacking is in the energy of Dublin is the kind of cultural space, places for young people to socialise, places for creatives to feel like they have somewhere to be, somewhere to go, and somewhere to make stuff happen. I think that would be something that I would love to see. And to be honest, I do feel like sadly people have to leave to kind of establish themselves as creative workers, just because there is a ceiling right now in Ireland. But I do believe that this feels like such a powerful generation of artists. The country is producing, like, in across all artistic media, is producing so many strong creatives that I feel like it's only a matter of time before that is re-imported into Ireland. That's what I hope to do whenever I feel like I've established myself enough to feel like I can bring something to the city. So I would imagine that a lot of people are feeling a similar sentiment. So yeah, I think that feels like it needs to be the starting point, plus obviously affordable rent, but like that's a given. After that it's like the culture and the space
to provide,
and to hopefully then reintroduce people and make people feel like, oh, I want to be there actually, because there's a place for me and there's things for me to do and there's a space for me to grow and expand and build a network, and there's not a ceiling anymore. We're international, that kind of thing.
And I have to say, I really got a sense of that at Culture Night this year. And
I don't know Dublin that well, but I think you should take me to Dublin and show me all the good spots to sort of bring your own, enthusiasm back. 'Cause sometimes when you bring someone else in that doesn't know it and they're like all starry-eyed and like, oh, this is amazing.
That's true.
And, can bring something back to it.
And I also think we need to give Athai a visit.
Oh yeah.
If we're in the presence of two celebrities, Golden Chariot going through the village, dare I say.
Oh my goodness.
This has been such a privilege to have you both in and discuss so many things from childhood, from upbringing, from our differing senses of home and relationships with the theme of home. And I just wanted to thank you guys, Shiv and Tambu, for coming in today. It's a long journey from Athai to London, but you made it here. Whistle Stop Tour of London. Please, guys, keep looking out for Shiv's music, which will be coming down the tracks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi_I'm_Shiv at Instagram. And Tambu, if you want to share your Instagram as well. You don't have to,
see
don't
the
worry.
chickens.
What is Instagram? No, I'm joking, but I don't have any of those things.
Totally fine.
I just have WhatsApp.
No, well, guys, this has honestly been such an honour to have you in, and it's been such a pleasure getting to know you, Tambu, through your story, and also getting to know you even more through your story. When you spoke with Shanikia the first time, it was really cool just to see you up there telling your story, and your music will continue to tell your story as well. So, and we hope you come and listen to our podcast again soon.
Woo.
Cheers.
Yes.
Join us next time to walk in more people's shoes, hear stories around different themes, and have more great discussions. Don't forget to hit subscribe, and we look forward to you joining us next time to connect through the power of shared storytelling.